I've had a couple of great questions from one of my mentees who I'm going to call Nigel. That's not his real name, but we'll protect his identity and his anonymity. And he's asking about how to do JVs, particularly JVs with buy-to-lets. So the first part of his question is, I'd like to find out a little bit more about a joint venture, preferably on a buy-to-let approach. Roughly, how would this work? Would I A, find a deal and then find a JV to match the deal? Or would I find a JV partner and then find a deal together? So that's a great question, and this is one of the great sort of conundrums in property investing. And sort of paraphrasing what Nigel's asking, because he's asking about a JV, and I'll deal with that in a different video because that's taking it to a new level again. But starting at the basic premise, do we start with finding the property or do we start with finding the money? Now, you'll often hear it said that if you find the right deal, you'll find the money. And there is some truth to that, in that, if a deal is really, really good, and if you go out looking for the money to fund that deal, then you've got a much better chance of funding that deal than if it's a bad deal. So at a basic level, obviously that makes sense. But of course, the main thing to think about is, if you were to find a deal, who are you going to approach to actually raise the finance? And this is why it is so important, if you're going to get into property, and if you think that you're going to use JVs and private finance, and by the way, none of this is financial advice and I can't tell you whether you should or you shouldn't, then if you're going to do that, then you need to have people who you can approach. And so one of the very first things you need to do, if that's the way you're going to go in your property business, is not only thinking about how you personally raise finance for yourself through some conventional lenders like buy-to-let or maybe even bridging. Not only think about how you're going to find deals, but start thinking about who's in your network, who are the people that you know, who are the people who you've sort of cultivated, if you like, nurtured, and I don't mean that in a manipulative way, but people who you've perhaps talked to, who've expressed an interest in doing some kind of property deal with you, and then you can actually go and see them and say, here's a deal. So the best way to do this is to understand what your potential JV partner wants, and then to take them the deals, being the kind of deals that they want to do. One of the big mistakes that you'll see many people make is going to potential JV partners with a particular deal which isn't the kind of deal that JV partner wants to do. So for example, in this instance, Nigel's asking about buy-to-lets. Well, what Nigel would need to do is to cultivate a network of people who want to invest in buy-to-lets. Why do they want to invest in buy-to-lets? Well, we don't know. We'd have to sit down and talk to them and find out why that's their particular interest. But it may just be that they want to keep things simple and they understand the concepts around buying a house and renting it out, and they don't need to think about any more than that. But another investor may be using a different strategy. They may want to do something like commercial conversions and turn office buildings into flats. Would it be worth their while going to somebody who wants to invest in buy-to-lets and asking them if they want to provide the finance? Maybe, but let's just assume not, because if somebody is particularly interested in investing in buy-to-lets because they want to keep it simple and safe and they understand the concepts around buying a house and putting in a tenant, they may not and probably won't want to put their capital at risk into a venture which is going to take maybe 3 years. You've got to go through planning, you've got to get building regs, you've got to get in a big construction company to come and do the conversion works. You've got to be pretty sure of your exit. If you're going to turn an office building into flats, will you be able to sell all the flats? Will the profit actually materialise? That might not be what they want at all. So it's horses for courses, is what I'm saying. But let's just take this to another level again. There's a lot to this question, isn't there? It seems like a simple question, but there's quite a lot to it as well. Because ultimately, we can look at it this way as well. When you start going out looking for deals, should you have the finance already lined up? In other words, should you have your network already in place? Or should you go and find the deals first and then find the network and find the investors? Well, to be honest with you, it's a kind of a chicken and egg answer, and there is no quick and easy yes or no, right or wrong binary answer to this. The reality is you should do both. You should start looking for your investors and start looking for the deals at the same time. But as a practicality, if you could only do one, then it's probably easier to start by finding the finance first, because then at least when you find a deal, you know that you've got the finance lined up. But I know of many people who started in property who haven't had a clue where they're going to raise the finance. I can think of one particular gentleman I met who went off, and in his first month he found 4 deals and he had no idea how he was going to finance them. Was he worried about that? Well, he was a little bit overwhelmed by the idea that he suddenly had to find finance for 4 deals. But what did he do? Well, it focused him, and he actually went out and he found the finance for the 4 deals. Now, if I said to him like a month before, this is what's going to happen, you're going to find 4 deals, then you're going to go and find 4 JV partners, or 1 JV partner, or 2 JV partners, or however it was that he financed them, I'm sure he would have said, well, I can't do that. But because he was in the heat of the moment and he had the deals, he had to find the finance, and he set himself the target. I am going to find the finance and I'm not going to stop until I do. And he found it, and he found it relatively quickly, certainly within a month, and all of those 4 deals went through. So there we are. I've thrown out a lot of thoughts on that, Nigel. I think the bottom line would be it's both at the same time. If you can only do one, then start working on the network. But I wouldn't just do that, because it might take you a bit of time to find your first few JV partners, so I'd also be working on the deals, and if you find a deal, that will then incentivize you to go and find your JV partners anyway. So I hope that makes sense, and as so often in property, there is no quick and simple answer. There's no right or wrong. You just have to go out and do it, basically. And if you come over to my website, www.thepropertyteacher.co.uk, and click on Learning with Peter, you'll find a list of all of the resources which I've created to help you to become a successful property investor, including the Successful Property Investors Strategy Workshop, my best-selling ebook in which I'll take you step by step through everything that I did when I started in property and how I created a sizable portfolio of property, paying me passive income to replace my job income, having just been made redundant. And I did all of that starting with none of my own money. Really? Yes, I know it sounds like hype and you hear a lot of people talking about that kind of thing, but I literally started with none of my own money because, having been made redundant, like many people in their 30s, as I was at the time, I didn't have any savings to fall back on, so I had to find other ways to do it. And in the Successful Property Investors Strategy Workshop, I'm going to show you the system and the formula used by almost all successful property investors to create a multi-property portfolio producing passive income. In fact, in it, I'm going to show you everything that I did, including everything which I did right, so that you can copy me and do the same. And I'm also going to show you everything that I did wrong, so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made, and hopefully you'll be able to achieve far more than I did, and far more quickly. Plus, as well as the ebook, you're also going to receive a special video series as a special bonus from me, plus an audio download of me discussing with my mortgage broker how to get the very best mortgage deals and raise all the finance that you need to help finance your portfolio. Plus, I'm going to answer the 12 most common questions which are asked by new and would-be property investors. So if that all sounds good to you, please come over to my website, www.thepropertyteacher.co.uk, click on Learning with Peter, click on the link to the Successful Property Investors Strategy Workshop, and once you've made your order, I look forward to sending you the link so that you can download your copy along with the free bonuses immediately. And until next time, here's to successful property investing.